Sometimes the biggest changes in life don't come with warning. They arrive in the form of a single message, sent to the wrong person. That's how it began for Autumn Sinclair, a single mother trying to survive one day at a time. What she thought was just a mistake would soon lead to a stranger at her door, a man who claimed he had a right to speak about her children. Late at night, exhausted and desperate, Autumn typed quickly with trembling fingers. "Jane, please. The girls are sick again. I can't miss another day of work. Can you cover for me?" She hit send before fear could stop her. The screen stayed silent. No dots, no reply. With a shaky breath, she set the phone down on the counter and tried to steady herself. In the small living room, her twin daughters lay bundled under a threadbare blanket. Laya whimpered softly, her forehead hot with fever, while Wren clutched her old stuffed bunny with both hands, cheeks flushed red. Autumn pressed a damp cloth against Laya's skin. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here," she whispered. Her phone buzzed. Relief surged. Jane had answered. But when she read the message, her heart stumbled. "This isn't Jane. But I think we need to talk about the kids." Autumn froze. The number was unfamiliar. The area code, Portland. Her stomach tightened. She quickly typed, "Sorry, wrong number." No reply came. She tried to shake it off, but the words burned in her mind. "Talk about the kids?" Across town, 12 miles away, Landon Carter stood at his window staring at that same message. "The girls are sick again. Laya and Wren." He knew those names. He'd never spoken them aloud, never seen their faces, but he knew. 2 years ago, he had quietly followed up on an anonymous sperm donation he had made. There had been a confirmed success, a single mother named Autumn Sinclair. Twin girls. He had promised himself never to cross the line, to respect boundaries. But now, a wrong number had landed on his private phone, a number only 4 people even knew. Coincidence, or fate? That night he didn't sleep. By morning, he had made a choice. At 8:07 a.m., Autumn stood rinsing a baby bottle when a sharp knock startled her. She checked the time. No one was expected. Her daughters stirred on the couch, Laya coughing weakly. She walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and saw a tall man in a dark wool coat holding a phone and a folded piece of paper. She cracked the door open. "Yes? I'm sorry to show up unannounced," the man said gently, his voice calm but steady. "But we need to talk about the girls." Autumn's chest tightened. She moved to close the door, but his hand pressed lightly against it. Firm, not forceful. "My name is Landon Carter. I believe I received your message yesterday. By mistake." Her throat went dry. "You're that number?" He nodded. "I am. And I believe Leia and Wren might be my biological daughters." Her breath caught. "What did you just say?" "I donated to a fertility clinic 3 years ago. I never planned to meet the children, but when your message came to me, I couldn't ignore it. I've known about you, about the twins, but I kept my distance." Her eyes narrowed. "How do you know their names?" "I hired someone, legally, to confirm the outcome of my donation. I only learned there were twins. I swear I haven't interfered." Inside, one of the girls coughed again. Landon's face flinched, not from shock but concern. "You need to leave," Autumn said sharply. "I will," he promised softly, reaching into his coat. "But please take this." He held out a sealed envelope. "Everything I want to say is in here. If you never want to see me again after reading it, I'll disappear. No questions. Just read it." Hesitation tugged at her. Then slowly she took the envelope and closed the door. Her back pressed against the wood. Her heartbeat wild. Later she tore the envelope open with trembling hands. Inside, a handwritten note. "If I'm wrong, I'll walk away. But if I'm right, if Laya and Wren are from the donation I made 3 years ago, I never expected this. I don't want to claim anything. I only want what's best for them. And for you. If you'll talk, I'll listen. Landon. Tears blurred her eyes. She dropped the letter and rushed to her daughters. Wren slept with her bunny tucked beneath her chin. Laya's fever had eased, her breathing deeper now. Autumn kissed them, both whispering, "Mommy's here," but her heart wouldn't stop racing. 2 hours later, she peeked out the window. He was still there, parked in a black sedan, waiting. Stepping outside, she crossed her arms. "You know their names. You know too much." Landon got out calmly. "May I come in?" After a long pause, she nodded. Inside, she poured water into 2 glasses, her hands unsteady. "I thought you were a scammer. Someone who found out I used a donor and thought, easy target." "I would have thought the same," he admitted quietly. "But when I heard their names, I knew. I had requested legal updates from the clinic. 3 years ago. Nothing private, just basic stats. I knew there had been a birth. Twins. No partner listed. Then your message came to me and I couldn't ignore it." He handed her a folder. "This confirms it. My donor number, the dates, the stamp from the clinic. I was 1175B. Autumn's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. "I chose that profile," she whispered, "because it said the donor loved classical music and volunteered with children. I wanted kindness in their blood." Her eyes filled with tears. Words spilled out before she could stop them. She told him about her broken engagement, her diagnosis, her decision to try IVF before it was too late. She told him about her father's company collapsing, the scandal that had ruined her family name, the jobs she lost because no one wanted to hire a Sinclair. She told him about temp jobs, late nights, the endless fight to survive with 2 little girls. Landon listened in silence, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the glass in front of him. "I didn't know any of that," he finally said. "Why would you?" Autumn shot back. "You were just the DNA." But his eyes met hers steadily. "You and I both know it's more than that now." Her breath caught. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. "I didn't bring you into this," she whispered. "No," Landon said gently. He glanced down the hallway, where faint giggles carried from the girls' room. They did. The next morning, when Autumn opened her door, Landon was waiting again. He stepped from a sleek black SUV, not with arrogance, but with patient calm. "I found a pediatric clinic," he said. "Private, no press, just a checkup, no cost." "I told you I don't need help," Autumn said quickly. "I know. This isn't help, it's information. You said the girls have been sick a lot. Don't you want to know why?" The phrasing made her pause. It wasn't about him swooping in. It was about her daughters. The clinic sat quietly among tall pines, away from hospitals and headlines. Inside, the waiting room glowed softly, walls painted in watercolor blues and warm greens. Beanbags and stuffed animals lined the space, children's books stacked neatly in a corner. Autumn sat with a girl on each knee, Laya in bright pink leggings, Wren in a dinosaur hoodie that stretched tight across her tiny frame. Across from them, Landon sat quietly, hands folded, not intruding, only waiting. When the nurse appeared, she smiled kindly. "Laya and Wren." Both girls looked up in surprise. Autumn blinked. "You knew their names?" she asked softly. The nurse nodded with another warm smile. "Of course. Mr. Carter provided their records in advance. Nothing invasive, just vaccination history, recent illnesses. He said it was important we treat them like individuals, not just patients." Autumn didn't speak. She looked at Landon. He didn't say a word, just met her eyes. She felt the floor shift under her again. Not because he had arranged the appointment, not because he had paid for it, but because he had told a stranger, "Treat them like people, like her people." The exam was gentle, thorough. Laya sang softly while the doctor checked her throat. Wren pointed to a framed photo of a bunny on the wall and told the nurse that her own bunny sometimes gets tummy aches too. By the end of it, the doctor turned to Autumn and said, "They're fine. Maybe a little run down, but strong girls, very bonded. Do you have support at home?" Autumn paused, then nodded. "I'm figuring it out." Landon said nothing. He just stood by the door, silent like a sentry. On the way back, Autumn sat in the back seat with the girls. They had both fallen asleep against her shoulders, the soft rhythm of the car lulling them into peace. She glanced at Landon's reflection in the rear-view mirror. He wasn't watching her. He wasn't waiting for thanks. He was just driving. She didn't say anything, but something in her chest loosened. That night, just as she was locking up, Autumn noticed something outside her door. A brown paper bag. No note, no name, just a soft bundle tucked neatly beside the mat. Inside were a few things. A small stack of educational toys, soft blocks, a memory game, a pop-up book about animals, a canister of formula with a brand she could never afford, a tiny pair of fuzzy slippers, still tagged, one pink, one blue. She stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she sat on the floor beside it and cried. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the toys. It was the way the slippers were different colors, the way someone had thought about both of them. The word, the bag, had no name, no demand. He wasn't claiming space. He wasn't asking to be let in. He was simply offering. No conditions, no pressure. Just presents. Autumn brought the bag inside and placed it quietly by the crib. Laya stirred. Wren rolled over in her sleep. She stood there watching them, two tiny people she had sworn to protect with everything she had. And for the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel entirely alone. The man was still a stranger. But what he had done, it wasn't grand, it wasn't flashy, it was just kind. And in her world of scraped knees and unpaid bills and stretching every dollar, kindness felt like a miracle. The rain came down softly outside, the window as Autumn dried Laya's curls with a towel, humming the same lullaby she'd sung every night since the girls were born. Across the small living room, Wren giggled on the couch as Landon held a picture book upside down and dramatically misread every word. "That's not a cow," she shrieked, pointing at the page with wide eyes. "It isn't," Landon feigned surprise. "But it's white and has spots. It's a Dalmatian." Wren laughed so hard she fell backward into the cushions. Autumn watched them quietly, her arms around Laya. It had been 2 weeks since that first unexpected message, 2 weeks of cautious steps and thoughtful gestures. Landon had shown up, not every day, but often, always, with a reason. A book, he thought, Laya might love, a snack Wren had mentioned once, a calm, grounding presence that didn't ask for anything in return. He never stayed long, just enough to build trust, especially with the girls, and maybe slowly with her. One morning, Autumn found him sitting cross-legged on the floor with the twins, trying to learn how to fold origami cranes from a video Wren had requested. His large hands fumbled with the delicate paper, but he didn't give up. Ella patted his shoulder and said, "You'll get it, Mr. Landon," and has smiled like that meant everything. Another afternoon, he asked if he could take them all to the park just for an hour. Autumn almost said no, but something in her softened. He had never once overstepped, never once pushed. That hour turned into an afternoon. They watched the ducks together, Autumn sitting on the blanket beside him, the girls tossing bread into the pond. Wren slipped and landed in the mud, and Landon didn't hesitate. He scooped her up, mud and all, and made a silly voice about being the mud queen of Portland. Autumn laughed, surprised by the sound of it. The girls were safe, happy, and for the first time in a long while, so was she. The visits continued. Grocery runs became less of a chore when he was around to help carry bags or distract the girls with a game of who can spot more cereal boxes. Sometimes he'd stay for dinner, not always, but often enough that the girls began to ask if Mr. Landon would be joining. Then came the invitation. "I'd like to cook for you," he said one evening after helping them clean up spilled apple juice for the third time that week. "Just you and the girls. Nothing formal, just dinner." Autumn hesitated. She looked at him carefully, searching for any sign of expectation, but all she found was sincerity. "Okay," she said. "Dinner." His house wasn't as grand as she'd imagined a tech millionaire's would be. It was tasteful, clean, filled with books and soft lighting. There was a piano in the corner, and the girls gravitated toward it instantly. He cooked pasta from scratch with real tomatoes, and basil picked from a planter on his balcony. He let the girls help stir the sauce while he wore an apron that said, "Yes, chef." After dinner, Laya asked if he could play something on the piano. He hesitated, then sat down and played a soft tune, something jazzy and full of warmth. Autumn stood in the kitchen, loading dishes into the sink as the girls danced. She didn't even realize he had joined her until he reached for the sponge beside her hand. Their fingers touched. She froze. It was a small thing, barely a second, but his hand didn't jerk away. It simply rested there, solid and warm, gentle. Her breath caught. She turned slightly and their eyes met. The music continued in the background, and in that moment, everything else fell away. "I didn't mean to," he started. "It's okay," she said quickly. Too quickly. She pulled her hand back and focused on the dishes, scrubbing harder than necessary. Her heart thudded in her chest, loud and undeniable. For months, no, years, she had trained herself not to feel, not to need, not to trust. But now, something was shifting. He dried the plates beside her in silence, giving her space. Later, when the girls were buckled into their car seats, sleepily clutching their stuffed animals, Autumn turned to him on the porch. "They may have a good time," she said. "I'm glad," Landon replied. His voice was low, not trying to fill the silence, just existing in it. Autumn looked at him then, not at the millionaire, not the man who'd offered quiet help, but the one who now knew how Wren liked her toast cut diagonally, and how Laya needed 2 lullabies before bed. "Thank you," she said. He didn't say, "You're welcome." He just nodded and watched as she carried the girls inside. But that night when she finally climbed into bed, her hand still tingled where he touched it. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Autumn didn't feel like she was standing alone. Autumn sat cross-legged on the living room floor long after the girls had fallen asleep. The soft hum of the baby monitor filled the silence. Herbity act, but her mind was awake, buzzing with moments she didn't want to forget. She reached for her sketchbook, the one untouched for months. It still smelled faintly of charcoal. Flipping past half-finished sketches, she stopped at a blank page and began to draw. From memory, Landon crouched in the park listening to Wren explain why ducks were basically dinosaurs. The way his face softened as Leia sang her off-key ABCs. The warmth in his eyes, genuine, steady, present. She drew carefully. No idealizing, just truth. A man who never once looked at his phone, who never asked for thanks, who simply showed up. When she finished, her fingers ached. But the image was clear. Landon cross-legged on the grass, Wren leaning into his side, Laya Midong, a wild flower in her hand. His hands rested calmly on his knees, eyes crinkled with laughter. She stared at the drawing before closing the sketchbook. Days passed quietly. Landon didn't visit, but texted every morning. Action of society. "Did you sleep even a little? Wren says the duck is her new best friend. Don't forget you're doing better than you think." She only replied with simple thank yous, but each message stitched something broken inside her. She hadn't realized how lonely her mornings had been until someone remembered to ask. That Friday, he stopped by. "I was near the market," he said, handing her a small bag. Wren said she missed that awful green juice. Autumn chuckled. It tastes like grass clippings. Few loves it anyway. He stayed just a bit, long enough for Laya's high five and Wren to cover his arm in butterfly stickers. Then he noticed something beneath the couch. "Is this yours?" he asked, pulling out a sketchbook. She froze. Before she could respond, it slipped open. To that page, the one she'd drawn of him. For a long beat, he said, "Nothing." Autumn braced for awkwardness, for the kind of tension that usually came with vulnerability. But when he looked up, his voice was soft. "No one's ever seen me like this." She cleared her throat. "It's not finished. It's real," he said, eyes on the page. "That's what it is." He gently touched the edge of the drawing, careful not to smudge it. "I've been in magazines, on stages, suits, and speeches, but no one ever captured me. Just listening." "You were easy to draw," Autumn said quietly. "You were still—" He looked at her. Really looked. "Do you know how rare that is, to be seen like that?" Heat rose to her cheeks, but she didn't look away. Landon closed the sketchbook gently and handed it back. "Thank you." "It wasn't a gift," she said. "It is now." She had no words, so she said nothing. Temperament hovered between them, not awkward, but delicate, like something precious and new. That night, after the girls were tucked in and dishes done, Autumn reopened her sketchbook. She ran her thumb over the lines, his jaw, Laya's hand curled, into his sleeve, the flower in Wren's fingers. She thought of what he'd said. "No one's ever seen me like this." And that's what scared her, because maybe she was beginning to see him. Not as the stranger from her wrong number, not the donor, not the man with money or perfect timing, but someone who could exist within her chaos and not flinch. Someone who didn't need rescuing and didn't expect to rescue her either. Someone who showed up and made the space beside her feel less like a ledge and more like solid ground. The comment wasn't meant for her to hear, but Autumn did. She was at the co-op grocery store near her old neighborhood pushing the double stroller, while Laya hummed some made-up tune and Wren clutched a plush fox. It had been a good day, a simple yun. The girls were smiling, the weather crisp, but not cruel. For a moment things felt normal, and then the words cut through like cold wind. "Man, you think it's coincidence?" She sends a text to a millionaire, and now he's at her house every week. Two women stood by the organic apples. One of them, Miranda, was someone Autumn had once shared drinks and startup gossip with in another life before things fell apart. "I heard she used a donor," the second woman added. "Now she's trying to lock him in by making it look like fate." Classic Cinderella scam. 2 kids and a sad story. He won't know what hit him. Autumn's hands clenched around the stroller handle. She could have walked away. She almost did, but Laya turned to her and whispered, "Mommy, your eyes look mad." And that stopped her cold, because the last thing she wanted her daughters to see was her letting someone else's cruelty define the way she held herself in the world. She didn't say a word to the women, just gave them a look, calm, steady, deliberate, and turned the stroller toward checkout. But inside, the words dug deep. That night, as the girls napped after lunch, Autumn sat on the couch with her phone in her hand, staring at Landon's latest message. "Made any more dinosaur friends today?" She typed back, then deleted it. He typed again, deleted again. She didn't want to sound like she was fishing for reassurance, but she was hurting. And Landon noticed when he stopped by that evening with soup and a new storybook about penguins. He caught on quickly. "What happened?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then finally told him. The words were ugly, but she repeated them anyway. "I know I shouldn't care," she said, voice tight. "But part of me does. I worked so hard to survive, and now it's like I have to justify every bit of kindness you give me. Like I'm scheming." Landon didn't react right away. He didn't rush to anger or try to offer some hollow comfort. Instead, He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a card. It was an invitation. Celebrate single mothers, an evening of resilience, reflection, and community, sponsored by Carter Foundation. "I've been meaning to ask if you'd come," he said. "You don't have to say anything. Just be there." Autumn blinked at it. "You're sponsoring this." "I started it last year," he said simply. "It matters to me, and I think if you were willing, your story could mean something to a lot of people." She stared at the card. Her instinct was to say no. She hated public speaking. She hated being seen as a case. But then she thought about what those women had said, and about how many other women might feel just like she had that morning. Humiliated, unseen, judged. She looked up. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll do it." The auditorium was packed. Rows of chairs, fairy lights strung overhead, and soft music playing. There were women with babies in slings, toddlers in mismatched socks, teenagers standing beside mothers who looked too young to have raised them alone. There were tears, laughter, and stories being shared over donated wine and cheap hors d'oeuvres. And then it was Autumn's turn. Her palms were sweaty, her knees locked. But when she stepped up to the mic and saw Landon in the front row looking at her, not with pity or pressure, but quiet support, she found her voice. "I never planned to be single. Mother," she began, "but life has a way of tearing up plans and handing you a paintbrush instead." A few soft laughs. She told them about her diagnosis, about the heartbreak of the relationship she thought would end in marriage, about choosing to become a mom not because she gave up on love, but because she believed in the kind that never left. "I was 4 months pregnant when my family lost everything. I went from managing million-dollar campaigns to clipping coupons and counting quarters in line at the pharmacy. And yet, I've never regretted becoming a mother. Not once." The room was silent. Tears streamed down faces she didn't know. She wasn't telling them anything extraordinary, just the truth. The messy, hopeful, defiant truth. She closed her speech with one simple line. "Being a mom didn't break me. It rebuilt me." For a moment, no one moved. Then Landon stood up and he clapped. Loud, clear first. The sound echoed across the room like a rising tide. One by one, others joined. Soon the whole auditorium was on its feet. Autumn met his eyes across the sea of faces. He didn't mouth anything. He didn't need to. It was all there. In the look. Recognition. Respect. Something deeper, not just for the mother she had become, but for the woman she always was. 6 months later, the house was still a little too small, and the backyard a little too wild. But Autumn wouldn't have changed a single thing. They had moved in mid-spring, a modest craftsman cottage with faded blue shutters and a creaky porch swing that Landon swore he would fix, but never did. The garden out back was messy and overgrown, full of potential and dandelions, just like their lives. Wren was curled up under the rosebush that afternoon, whispering to the neighbor's tabby cat and insisting she was learning to speak cat. Laya was at the picnic table, covered in finger paint, drawing a rainbow with shoes. "Because rainbows walk to the sky," she explained. Inside, Landon was in his home office, sleeves rolled up deep in a video call with a pediatric research team. He worked from home now 3 days a week and never missed dinner. Autumn stood by the window, watching all of it with quiet wonder. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't perfect, but it was home. Her online art shop was doing better than she'd hoped. Not wildly successful, but steady. Every few days, a new order would come in for a hand-drawn family portrait, a nursery mural sketch, or her favorite, custom memory collages made from people's stories. But today, she wasn't drawing for clients. Today, she was drawing for herself. In her lap was a new sketchbook. On the page, she was working on a piece she had only imagined before. It showed 4 figures in a garden. Laya chasing a butterfly, Wren petting a cat, Landon reading on a blanket, and Autumn laughing with her head tilted back barefoot in the grass. No masks, no worry lines. Just joy. That night, under soft golden light strung across the backyard fence, they ate dinner on a blanket with plastic plates and too many napkins. Laya told a long, winding story about how worms were actually secret superheroes. Wren meowed her agreement. Autumn leaned back against Landon's shoulder, sipping warm cider as the girls played nearby. "Do you remember?" she said softly. "That night I sent you that text by accident." Hez smiled, hard to forget. "I was so scared," she admitted. "Not just about the girls being sick, but about everything. I thought I had ruined our lives." "You saved them," he said. She shook her head. "I thought being a single mom would mean giving up on love, that I was choosing one thing forever, that you couldn't have both." He turned to her, eyes steady. And now she exhaled. "Now I know I wasn't giving up on love. I was trusting the first kind of love I ever felt. The strongest one, the love between a mother and her children. It gave me everything. Even you." Landon reached out, his fingers gently threading through hers. "You know what I think?" he said. She tilted her head toward him. "I think love was never about choosing one thing over another. I think love is the thing that chooses us when we're finally ready for it." She blinked against the warmth in her chest. "That's cheesy." He grinned, but true. Autumn rested her head against him, listening to the girls' laughter echo into the night. This wasn't how she'd pictured her life 5 years ago. It was better because everything they had now, every hard-won smile, every quiet night, every soft word, they had earned with courage, with grace, with hearts that refused to stay closed forever. She looked at him, this man who had once been a stranger, with a business card, now brushing spaghetti sauce from Renchic without flinching. He'd killed men and women, he claimed. But she thought he did it for the better men and women who had not. He had never asked to be a father, but he had chosen to stay. And that choice had made all the difference. "I love you," she whispered. Landon smiled. "Good, because this is just the beginning." And as the light swayed above them and two small girls argued over who got the last piece of garlic bread, Autumn felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Oh, not everyone born a father learns how to love like one, and not every woman who carries a child becomes a mother in the truest sense. But when two hearts that have known pain find the courage to stay open, family is no longer something you build. It's something that finds you. And sometimes it all begins with the wrong text message sent at the exact right time. Sometimes the wrong number leads to the right story. Sometimes love doesn't knock, it sends a text that changes everything. If Autumn and Landon's journey moved something in you, if it reminded you that family can be chosen, that love can arrive when we least expect, then don't keep that feeling to yourself. Tap the hype button to show your love. Share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more tales that don't just entertain, but remind us of what matters most. Until next time, keep your heart open, because the next message you receive just might change your life.